Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am here with Harold Reeves still. He is still the regional product manager for mobile computing here in North America. We've been talking about Windows CE, some of the changes with going to Android, and a couple other topics this afternoon in these different videos. The one that I wanted Harold to speak to now would be around product lifecycle. What I think you're going to see is not only the continuation of our good, better, best philosophy, like is illustrated kind of on the screen here.
No problem, Mark. I think one of the great things about what we're going to talk about today is how it's actually more structured than it's ever been in the Zebra offering for Lifecycle. So in the past, we've had this concept in a lot of products for a 4-year or a 3-year or a 5-year life cycle, and we would reset the clocks and we would do things as we refresh portfolios. But you didn't have the clarity that we're going to talk about today. And in fact, in CE, you could think and go back a little bit to the MC9090 to the MC9190 as an example. When we refreshed the product, you got a 6 to 9, maybe a 12-month overlap in the products. You got a very short window of engineering support for software, and then you got your 5 years of break fix as we ended the product life cycle. So, and it was very unpredictable from a customer perspective. It would be on the release of a new chipset, on the release of a new piece of hardware, where we go. Today, when we look at, let's call it the modern Zebra Android product set, we're going to classify products, and we've got 3 examples here for how these product classifications work. The TC2 series, the TC5 series, and the TC7 series. We're going to classify a minimum of availability into the marketplace for being offered for sale. So the worst case plan is that we're going to offer the TC2 series for 3 years. Zebra, it can go longer than that, but just in a worst case planning, a 3-year minimum availability of sale. And then when we do announce an end of sale, we're going to have a 3-year hardware break fix window for that product. So in our terminology, it's 3 plus 3. You can see that translates down to the TC5 and a 4 plus 4. 4 years of availability. When we finally do the end of sale, it's 4 years of hardware break fix. After that, a 4 plus 4 life cycle, and then the TC7 represents a 5 and 5 scenario. So 5 years of availability and 5 years of break fix. Now, this gets interesting. You alluded to this in the introduction, Mark. It gets interesting when we look at what does that mean in terms of a life cycle estimate. So for the TC70, we originally released a TC70 at the end of 2014, and then we released the TC70X at the end of 2016, and we just announced publicly our TC72 here at the end of 2018. And we didn't end the previous product. So that was the example I gave in CE in the MC9090 to 9190. You would see an end of sale and a termination. Nope, we honored the 5-year commitment for each of these chassis. And what you end up with is here in the year 2019, I'll have three versions of the TC7 available. Now that gives us a great way of positioning with our customers the urgency of transition. We can go to a customer that's been a TC70 original customer and let them know, hey, there's still a year of availability, worst case. Worst case. Now, Zebra hasn't announced the end of sale for the TC70 yet. But if we go and do the figuring, the 5 years on the 2014 first ship, the worst case for that TC70 is it'll be available through 2019. Now, the customer has an opportunity to transition to the 70X or to skip the 70X altogether and move up to the TC72, all with that story of the back room protecting the charging capabilities, the cradle capabilities, all of that back room and peripheral strategy being backwards compatible. And this is, again, much more predictable than it was in the Windows CE world and much more structured. When we walk down into the TC5 series, you can see, again, the TC51 arrived right at the end of 2016 and the start of 2017, and here we just publicly announced the TC52, and I've got a couple of years of overlap for the product. There's no urgency for a TC51 or a 56 customer. to migrate. If they're ready to, that's great. I've actually got an operating system story that lets them share a common operating system for a little while. The TC51 will get an O operating system, and the TC52 releases with O, so you can have a common operating system. And then when we go down and look at how that models out in our TC2 series, you can see I haven't announced a refresh for the TC2 yet, but you can see that I have a nice 3-year life cycle and a 3-year ramp down. And I'll call your attention now to just how we would look at Lifeguard and the operating system support. So while a device is alive and in the manufacturing process, we absolutely have an OS cadence for patching that's on the current operating system shipping and -1 operating system. We'll do a little thought experiment with that in just a second. But you can see that when I do formally do the end of sale, if you have the break fix or if you have a Zebra OneCare policy, then we've got a 2-year Lifeguard included arrangement. So you've got a patch strategy for your operating system just built in to a hardware support or a Zebra OneCare support plan. And that doesn't matter what tier you're on. If you're in this top tier of the 5-year device, you get 2 years after the end of sale built in, no matter what the chassis is. Again, these are all the worst case planning dates. And then when we drop down to the TC5, that remains a 2-year window for the Lifeguard patch just built in. And same thing for my value tier TC2 series. I've got a 2-year built-in window if you are buying Zebra OneCare on software, ready for software support and ready for the device. Now, some customers and some partners like to work through this a little mechanically. So I'm going to caution you on the next slide. We're going to transition to another slide. I'm going to say that you don't start your customer discussion on this slide. This is a slide that you use to build out and model what does it mean in the life cycle of a customer, what operating systems are available, and what patching strategies should they take. When I'm talking with customers, this is a follow-on. This is something where we dedicate a few hours at a minimum, a half day, to what does operating system support look like at your location or in your environment. Because getting your hands and on the software patches and your mind around the availability, this is a simplified version. This doesn't include that there's a patch every 30 days. It just lets you know when there would be a patch every 30 days. And so you've got to work through what does that mean and how dynamic is the customer environment for patching. But if we took a TC51, a 4-in-4 life cycle device, and we just simplified it to a 4-year availability, you could see that in rough terms, the first operating system was M. That was shipped on the device. We then transitioned to N, and like I mentioned, we'll be transitioning to O for the last couple of years of that device. You can see that the current OS in manufacturing, you get what is the current OS for patching. So this is the operating system that's on the 30-day cadence in each of these same time frames. And then if you happen to get behind an operating system from the current one, well, at release, there was no operating system to be behind on, but you can see in the second year, if you didn't upgrade to N, you still got quarterly updates on M. When we transitioned to O, N became the -1 operating system, and you get quarterly updates there. So you have this structure that lets you put in a graphic what it means for where the cadences are and the operating systems available to you. Now remember, at any time, you can still down-rev the device. So if you bought a device and it shipped with O, but you wanted to stick with M, you can still down-rev the device and let your operating system be M and run your applications in your closed on-premise environment with an M operating system. So Lifeguard has a lot of flexibility in how we deploy. Would you like to just be static and be able to go back to the way you first deployed a couple of years ago? Great. Lifeguard supports you. Would you like to be dynamic and keep up to date with the latest and greatest patches, even on a 30-day cadence? Great. Lifeguard can support you there as well. What we're trying to represent here in this slide is what is available at what time in this life cycle. And we can put together the thought experiment for a 3-in-3 device or a 5-in-5 device. And again, we can look at the new products as well and see where the new operating systems can fit into that slot just as well. It's a tool that makes it available for you, again, and maybe studying and preparing for how to engage your customer on the complexity that a blank statement of, I just want the latest operating system. Okay, well, if you just want the latest operating system, keeping all of your existing devices up to date, here's a little bit of how that's going to work, and here's something to help us tune in the complexity of that. It also gives us the opportunity to help customers start to begin to formulate that they're going to need some consulting and some help in doing this, or they're going to need to invest in resources, in people who are specialists in keeping things up to date or watching over this, depending on the size of the application. It's one thing if you got 5 or 10 devices at one location, but as soon as you got 5 or 10 locations and 5 or 10 devices, someone's going to have to be on top of this and have a strategy for what you're going to do. Again, an absolutely acceptable strategy is I just want it to run like yesterday. Just take me and make everything the same in my operating system. Another valid strategy is I'd like to keep up to date and keep my patches moving. And this gives us the ability to talk through about how dynamic that is and where that environment is.
Well, that's excellent. You were far more eloquent in your description of this than I was at the top of the recording. But one thing I did want to clarify, I did like the fact that you did mention how you can basically down-rev from an OS to one OS to a previous OS. In this case, you said O to M. A couple of things that I wanted to just clarify. This is a thought experiment. It's not around a specific device. You like at the top, it says deploy a 4x4 4-year manufacturer, 4-year support hardware support device. But we do have these kind of broken down by specific devices. So maybe even just to have that discussion between Zebra and the partner as to expectations and maybe how to set that expectation with your end users. To have this discussion, we've got these kind of cheat sheets that you can use. The other thing that I think I wanted to mention was the fact that with Lifeguard is included with Zebra OneCare. So those first 2 lines where it says current OS and then current -1 OS, those are that's support for no additional charge as long as the customer has a Zebra OneCare or maybe some sort of software contract, but at least a Zebra OneCare that covering hardware and software. That's included at no additional charge. That bottom line where it says optional extension, that's something that I think differentiates Zebra in the fact that for a fee, I mean it's available for a fee, but if the customer still wanted to stay with O and wasn't going to upgrade devices in year 7 and 8 in this instance, they could pay and have security and software coverage still.
Absolutely, good call out. And yeah, thank you very much. This again, the chart gets very complex by hardware, by specific model. This is to give you that thought experiment level. Again, an OS cadence on a year, and what it feels like, and we can do the exact piece and work through that with you on a per device basis, because each one's just a little bit different, has a little bit different timing into the marketplace with the operating systems and the pieces. And great call out too on the Zebra OneCare. It's what we build in and make available based on a support agreement with Zebra.
That's excellent. Harold, thanks so much. I know this slide could have been used now that looking back on it, and how selling Android is different, because this is a discussion that would have never probably taken place with an end user back in the Windows mobile era.
I think you're absolutely right, and I appreciate the time and good luck selling to everyone.
All right, Harold, thanks so much.